Remember that movie where Tom Hanks is on an island? No, not Joe versus the volcano. The one with the volleyball? You ever wonder what the movie would have been like if instead of a FedEx employee, his character was a fisherman? Yeah, me neither. But in this video, we're going to bring you a few real-life tales of how that could have gone down. Hey there, Fishizens! Welcome back to Go Fishing Now, your #1 source on the internet for daily videos on all things fishing. Start painting a face on the sports equipment of your choice because today you're getting stranded as we count down the top 10 fishermen who got lost at sea. Number 10. Salvador Ordonez, Jesus Vidana, and Lucio Rendon. Have you ever gotten your favorite lure snagged and spent a little too long trying to save it? Well, let this be a cautionary tale. To paraphrase Clerks, sometimes you just gotta let those hard-to-get lures go. In October 2005, 5 men went shark fishing off the coast of Mexico. Mr. Ordonez, who is known to be an expert shark fisherman, was worried that the boat had too little fuel, water, and food for the expedition, and considered not going but needed the money. The story goes they lost their shark tackle and used all their fuel trying to find it. From there, strong winds carried the boat out to sea. This kicked off an incredible 9-month-long ordeal for the men on the 29-foot-long vessel. Showcasing survival skills that would make Bear Grylls proud, the men collected rainwater, made fish hooks out of the engine parts and cables, snuck up on seabirds that landed on the boat, and dove for turtles to survive. The men ate every part of the animals raw and drank the blood. Sadly, the boat owner Juan David and another fisherman weren't able to tolerate the blood and raw meat and subsequently died of starvation. On August 9th, let me remind you that they left in October of the previous year, a Taiwanese fishing boat found the men adrift near the Marshall Islands, over 5,000 miles from where they had set out. While that's a long time to be out at sea, it's not even close to the record. Stick around till number 1 to find out the longest recorded fisherman lost at sea. Number 9. John Aldridge. John Aldridge and Anthony Sosinski had been lobster crab fishing together near Montauk for 14 years. One July evening in 2013, John took the night shift while Anthony was catching some Z's. Always the over-preparer, John decided to fill up some tanks for the next catch. While moving parts around, a handle snapped and John was thrown into the water. Now, while that doesn't sound too bad on its own, the boat was on autopilot and John wasn't wearing a life vest. The boat left him in the dark waters all alone while Anthony dreamed of unicorns. No, wait, manly stuff. Fighting sharks and bears. Yeah, that's better. When he woke in the morning to go tell his bro about his awesome dream, John was nowhere to be found. Concerned for his friend and not fully convinced this wasn't one of John's crazy pranks, he called the Coast Guard before heading to write in his dream journal. Meanwhile, John had been in the water for hours. Fortunately, he's a master of ocean survival and knows how to keep himself afloat while conserving energy. The Coast Guard finally found John casually floating after over 12 hours in the water. John was like, "Dude, I got you so good." Nah, not really. We're fairly certain this was an extreme dedication to one of his crazy pranks. Number 8. Kenya Christmas Miracle. As they say, the waters of Kenya are not to be trifled with. This became painfully apparent to 8 men whose boat capsized in deep waters off the coast of Kenya in December 2019. The disappearance was not immediately reported, which significantly decreased their chances of survival. Nevertheless, all 8 of these men survived to be rescued by the Marine Police 18 days later on Christmas Day. In a surprise twist, it turns out that during their 18 days out at sea, the men had eaten a grand total of 127 pounds of lobster. Now that's surviving in style. All they needed were some vanilla bean to be able to finish making the creme brulee. Number 7. The Micronesia Fishermen. Wait, stop me if you've heard this one before. A group of people set out for what was going to be a very short trip, but unforeseen events happened and they were stranded for a long period of time. Well, the less hilarious version we're referring to involves 3 Micronesian fishermen who set out for a short fishing trip only to have their engine die. Apparently, their families didn't notice their absence for a few days. Gee, thanks mom. But eventually decided to alert the Coast Guard. Fortunately, the fishermen took matters into their own hands and waved down a passing aircraft. See what it did there? Hands, wave. The aircraft was able to drop some supplies to help the guys out, and shortly after, the men were rescued and returned to their families. Mom was all like, "How was the trip? Did you catch anything?" Ugh. Number 6. The Kaz 2. The ghost yacht of Australia was a catamaran found drifting off the northeastern coast of Australia in April of 2007. The 3-man crew aboard the ship was never heard from again. After departing Airlie Beach for their first leg to Western Australia, a helicopter spotted something very wrong with the boat just 3 days into its journey. After boarding the yacht, police found all of the fishermen's gear intact and everything was present as if the men were still around. But since you're hearing the story, that obviously wasn't the case. There was laundry still hanging up, dishes in the sink, and a laptop still open. Everything on the boat, inside and out, appeared to be in perfect working condition. The police and courts found no evidence of foul play, although something was obviously amiss. To this day, no one knows what happened to those 3 fishermen and why or how they left the boat the way they did. No evidence has ever surfaced to suggest that the men are dead or alive, and the case remains open to this day. We're halfway through our countdown and the stories are only getting crazier from here. How long do you think you'd be able to survive out at sea if your survival skills were really put to the test? Let us know in the comments. Now where were we? Great, now we're lost too. Number 5. 6 weeks at sea. Wait, stop me if you've heard this one before. A group of people set out for what was going to be a very short trip, but unforeseen events happened and they were stranded for a long period of time. Wait a minute, didn't I just read... Never mind, it's applicable. Only this time, 3 Australian fishermen set off for a fishing trip on January 2nd and were not seen again until rescued off the coast of Samoa in late February. While these guys had their engine in proper working order, a tropical storm came and pushed them as far as the Solomon Islands. Although repeat search and rescue missions were made, it took a cyclone and a subsequent proactive patrol to find the fishermen. Unsurprisingly, they were all suffering from severe dehydration and exposure, but they did survive the seemingly hopeless ordeal. Makes me sorta rethink the whole deep sea fishing trip I was planning. I mean, make sure to check out our video on the top 10 best deep sea fishing locations. Number 4. Andrea GAIL. You've probably heard of the Andrea GAIL from a little flick in the 90s called The Perfect Storm. I mean, Mark Wahlberg and George Clooney together in one film. Talk about some star power. I mean, it was a great film, excellent acting, and great storytelling. On September 20th, 1991, the Andrea GAIL set out for her last journey, never to be seen again. After a big haul, the fishermen decided to head home because their ice machine was not working properly. There were several reports of dangerous weather in the path the Andrea GAIL was taking home. The waves were reported to be 30 feet high and wind speeds increased to 92 miles per hour. The last reported words of the captain over the radio were, "She's coming on, boys. She's coming on strong." None of the men or the boat were ever seen again. Bits and pieces of the boat have been found over the years, but the Andrea GAIL lives somewhere deep on the ocean floor forever now. Number 3. 536 Fishermen, Siberia. So this one doesn't actually involve a boat, but we're still going to count it because it is awesomely Russian. Emergency teams in Russia rescued hundreds of fishermen who were left stranded after a huge piece of floating ice they were standing on broke away from an island in eastern Siberia. While they didn't float away very far, only about 200 meters, it did take over 7 hours to rescue them all. My favorite part of this is that some of the fishermen were all like, "Nah, screw waiting 7 hours," and hopped on smaller pieces of ice to use as a makeshift boat to get back to shore. "In Mother Russia, we don't need boat. Tiny icebergs work just fine. Then we go have borscht and Smirnoff vodka." Believe it or not, this isn't anything new for Siberia. That week alone, authorities had rescued another 300 people and an additional 600 the next week, all related to runaway ice. Apparently, there were warnings about the breakaway ice that the fishermen ignored. I get it. There's not much stopping me from catching some herring when I get a craving for layered herring salad. Number 2. Rolando Amongos. Rolando Umangos was out fishing with his uncle and other crew members off the coast of the Philippines in January of 2017. A storm separated Rolando and his uncle from the main boat. Taking a cue from that reindeer documentary he had just watched, Rolando survived on rainwater and moss that grew on his tiny boat. Rolando's biggest threat was a tropical sun, which sadly is what killed his uncle along with dehydration. After 58 days of floating aimlessly, the Japanese sea vessel found Rolando alone in such bad condition that he was unable to stand. He went from a healthy 134 pounds to an unbelievable 44 pounds upon his rescue. After recovering in Papua New Guinea, Rolando was allowed to fly home on his first ever flight. Rolando, who had quit school after 6th grade, vowed to never set foot on a boat again and go back to school instead. Alright guys, we've made it to our number 1 pick. Put your guess in the comments for how long you think this fisherman was lost at sea. Whoever gets the closest can have half of my layered herring salad. Well, maybe just a bite. Number 1. Jose Salvador Alvarenga. Jose Alvarenga was a fisherman who was found alive on his fishing boat on the 30th of January 2014 on the Marshall Islands. Let me repeat that so you remember it. He was found January of 2014. He originally left on his fishing boat on November of 2012. That's 14 months out at sea. Jose says he survived on a diet of raw fish, small birds, turtles, and rainwater. He wasn't alone at first, but his shipmate passed away several months into the ordeal. The tales of what Jose had to endure both physically and mentally were horrifying. His shipmate's last request of Jose was that his body wouldn't be eaten. Jose apparently respected this, but unfortunately kept the body on the boat for days, talking to it as if it was still alive. It was days before Jose was able to push his friend overboard and accept that he was very truly alone. Jose's story became international news and many skeptics actually thought he was lying. By all accounts, his story was true and all Jose really wanted was to see his family again. Doctors in the area let him leave with a clean bill of health soon after his rescue and were astounded at his great condition considering the circumstances. There you have it folks, our top 10 fishermen who were lost at sea. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Play that crazy prank on you where we tread water for 12 hours.